taught more about grieving people who have passed on. And I know it's very difficult even in those scenarios, but grieving someone that is alive, or grieving a job, or grieving a friendship that it's still there, but the way you can go back, but you shouldn't go back, is the hardest thing ever. And I would never wish that pain on anyone. Welcome to the Best Kept Secrets podcast, where we share our best kept secrets about life, love, God, and everything in between. Hi guys, welcome to season 5, episode 5 of the Best Kept Secrets podcast, where we share our best kept secrets on God, love, life, and everything in between. We are halfway into the season. This is actually episode 5, meaning we only have 5 more episodes to go, and then we take a break. I know saying that is a hot topic on this podcast because we took quite a long break last time, but this one will be a shorter break, I promise. But how are you guys enjoying the conversation so far? Please let me know. Let us know. Your feedback actually matters, so that we plan the next half of the conversations. Today is a solo episode. I am trying to do a few more solo episodes on this new season, so I think I'm only going to do one more other than this. I hope you guys have been enjoying them. So when I was trying to figure out what to talk about on this solo episode, I had a direction that I wanted to go, and I was very set on going that direction. And then yesterday I started feeling convicted that I shouldn't speak about that and I should speak about something else instead. And guys, like, let me tell you, when God wants you to do something, he will interrupt, he will send a talking donkey, he will do everything that. First of all, sorry, my brain, but did you guys know about the talking donkey in the Bible? I just found out a few weeks ago and I was shook. Anyways, the point is, when he wants you to do something, he will send as many interruptions, or your spirit will just not be okay. So I barely slept last night because I was so set on not speaking about this thing, and God was just like, you're gonna talk about it. So here we are, and we're talking about breakups. I didn't want to speak about this, but I am following the leading of the Lord. So here we are. So in terms of breakups, I don't want us to only narrow down on relationship breakups. I want us to speak about breakups in general, because relationships aren't the only thing that you can break off of, or you can end up in a breakup with. You can also break up with friends, you can break up with money, you can break up with, like, there's so many things. Like there are things that God can remove in your life, or you can leave from your life in terms of breakups. So it's not just relationship breakups that we'll be speaking about. The first thing that I wrote is that you didn't lose what God had for you. And I think when you're going through a breakup of any sort, whether relationship or not, you feel like you're losing something that was for you. You feel like you're losing this like really big thing. And sometimes it is like that. But I want to assure you, the reason that you're losing it is because it was never for you to start with. Because if it was for you and it was from God, you probably would still have it, right? So I recently read something in Genesis again that shook me. I think that's why people keep saying read the Bible for yourself, because once you do, you discover so many things that pastors don't tell you, or you are not taught in Sunday school, or siari amkufunzwa. So there's allow me to read the word. Niliwambia we are going to be reading the Bible. So allow me to read. This is Genesis 12, 10 to 17. The backstory of this is that Abraham has been called. So Abraham has told, God has told Abraham, leave your native country, leave your relatives, leave everything, go to the land that I will show you. I'll be a blessing to you and you'll be a blessing to others. He'll make him a father of nations. Basically, Abraham has been given a blessing, right? And at the same time, there's a famine that struck the land of Canaan. So it forced Abraham to go down to Egypt, where he would live as a foreigner. So he was escaping the famine in Canaan. So verse 11 says, as he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abraham said to his wife Sarah, look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, let's kill him. Then we can have her. So please tell them that you're my sister. And then you will spare my life and treat me well they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. So basically, Sarah was hot. Who knew? Like when we think about women in the Bible who are cute, I never thought Sarah would be cute. I don't know why. Maybe I'm being biased against her. Like I know Esther was cute. I never thought Sarah was cute. Basically, she was very good looking, and Abraham knew that if I go with you to Egypt and you say you're my wife, they're going to take me, they're going to take you from me, and they'll treat me badly. So say you're my sister. Crazy. So, and sure enough, when Abraham arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarah's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarah was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abraham many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male, female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abraham and accused him sharply. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she's my sister and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here." So Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abraham out of the country along with his wife and his possessions. So basically, the summarization of this story is that Abraham has been given a promise. Then, while in that promise, famine hits, right? So he decides to go to Egypt to flee the famine. When they get there, Sarah is hot. He tells Sarah, "Don't tell people you're my wife because they'll treat me badly. Say you're my sister." And true to the fact, when they enter Egypt, Sarah is being noticed everywhere. Everyone is telling her that, yeah, you're hot. And they go and tell Pharaoh, by the way, there's this babe. She's just come through from wherever she's come through and she's hot. You need to take her as your wife. And that actually ends up happening. And because of that, Abraham receives a lot of gifts from Pharaoh, right? And the part that struck me was that God sent plagues to Pharaoh. This is not the other Pharaoh for Moses. This is another Pharaoh. So he sent plagues to Pharaoh. Sent plagues to Pharaoh. And what I got from this is that God will interrupt and disrupt when you're outside of his will for you. Because if Sarah ended up staying in Egypt, if Sarah and Abraham ended up staying in Egypt as brother and sister, quote unquote, and as Pharaoh's wife, then the promise of the child would have never happened. The promise of Abraham being the father of many nations would have never happened. None of that would have happened because they were operating outside of God's will. And anytime you're operating outside of God's will, God will send interruptions and he will make sure that that thing is dispersed, basically. So I think that was very, very profound to me, because when you're going through the breakup, you feel like, God, why are you taking this thing away from me? Why am I losing this thing that I love so much? And then when I read this story, I was like, okay, it was never mine to begin with. And the promise over my life is so big. And this thing was clearly diverting me from the promise over my life. So I want to just assure you that whatever you have lost was never yours. And it's probably diverting you from what is actually yours, and God had to come and disrupt it, or he had to send you confirmation that, okay, disrupt, leave, this is not for you. So yeah, that was the first thing that I wrote. The second thing that I wrote was sometimes God breaks your heart to save your soul. And it's not always that God is breaking our heart. Sometimes you're the one breaking your own heart, by the way. Sometimes it's you, girl. Sometimes you're the drama. Sometimes you're the one who has put yourself in a situation you shouldn't be in. Or sometimes you're idolizing something you shouldn't be idolizing and you've caused the heartbreak yourself. But there are other times that God causes breakups because he's using that to mold us. He's using that to teach us. And he's using that to save our soul. And when that happens, allow him. Allow it. I think the biggest lesson that I have learned is that there's no need to wrestle with God sometimes. And I mean, I think wrestling with God is a good thing. I think, maybe that's a controversial thing to say. I think having those like conversations with God for why, but why God? And I think it develops your character in some way, or it develops your relationship with God, because you're able to trust him better when you have wrestled. But other times I have learned that in the wrestle you hurt yourself more. Sometimes it's better to just say, okay, God, I hear you, I'm gonna drop it and I'm gonna keep it moving. I think we learned in one of the episodes we shot recently, that procrastination is delayed obedience. So the longer you procrastinate and not drop the thing, the worse it's just gonna get when you actually end up dropping the thing. And it's delayed obedience. You're just not obeying something that you know you should be obeying. So all of this is happening to basically save your soul. Maybe you're idolizing something. Maybe he's trying to teach you something. Maybe he's trying to mold you. Maybe, there's just something that he's doing with it. By the way, God is always working, even when we don't feel like he is, even when we can't understand the fuller picture. The Bible says that his ways are not our ways. So you kind of just have to like trust him and trust that he knows better than we know, and we don't have it figured out, and that's okay. Yeah. So another thing that I wrote is that stop picking at the wound, because you won't actually heal. I think this is a lesson that I have learned very painfully, because sometimes you make the pain your identity, meaning that you're picking at the wound and you're not letting the wound actually heal. And people who make their pain their identity, you can always tell, because it feels like they're burdened. They don't, you feel like, you're not free. You can't breathe. Like there's always a weight on you. And that's because you're not letting the wound actually heal. And if you've ever had like a wound on your skin, you can always tell when you pick at the scab and then you peel it off, you start bleeding all over again. You don't let the skin actually do what it's supposed to do and actually heal and then regenerate its skin cells and stuff. Hey, hadi tumefika biology. But yeah, basically, stop picking at the wound, let it heal, leave it alone. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, okay, God, heal me, do what you need to do within me, have your way through me, just do you, because at the end of the day, you're God and you're sovereign over my emotions, over everything, right? So don't make pain your identity, don't pick at the scab, don't pick at the wound, just let it heal and let God regenerate you. Actually, in my experience, I've learned that every time you drop something, every time you break off of something, there's a rebirth that happens because of that. You get a step closer to becoming the person that God wants you to be, and you get a step closer to your destiny and to the fulfillment of your destiny. So yeah, just heal, girl. Go to therapy, do what you gotta do, like cry, do everything that you need to do. And once you actually let the wound heal, you'll come out with fresh, brand new skin, and everything will be a lot better. Yeah. Another thing that I wrote is that when you have a relationship with God, your relationship with sin changes. And this is just about breaking up or breaking off of things. Maybe the conversation should be breaking off of things. But when you have when you have a relationship with God, your relationship with sin will change. There are certain things that will just break off of you. You'll feel like, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. Or that thing that was tasty is not tasty anymore. Or that thing that I really enjoy doing, I don't enjoy doing it. You have a new fresh outlook on sin and what that actually looks like. And part of gaining in God is losing. You have to lose something. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's the way God works. For him to mold you or to build your character, there's something that he has to take in order for him to replace it with something better. Replacing with something better means that there was something there that wasn't good that God needed to take away, or that God needed you to drop. So part of gaining is losing. So when you go through the loss, don't feel bad about it. Just know that you are going to gain something from this. I mean, this applies to, I don't think it applies to everything, but in most scenarios and most instances, when you lose something, you always gain. You always gain. So this reminds me of again, we've talked about Abraham a lot in this episode, but again, when God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, first of all, every time I read that story, I'm like, would I have sacrificed my son? My promise that I have been waiting for all this time. And clearly you can see, even to the point that they went and they disobeyed, and they even did the thing with Hagar and all of these things, is that this promise that God had given them had become an idol in their lives, right? Both Sarah and Abraham. So for God to ask him to lay this thing down, to lay Isaac as a sacrifice, you can clearly tell that this was an area that God needed to see, or to make sure you're not idolizing the promise that I gave you, or the gift that I've given you. Because sometimes we're given gifts and then we end up idolizing them, right? And people don't know, by the way, you can idolize your children, or you being a mom, or you being a dad, or you being a wife, or being a husband. So yeah, anyways, I digress. So basically, what I get from this story is that the ram was always there. Whatever, like, all God needed from Abraham is for him to lay down Isaac, quote unquote, lay down Isaac, because he didn't actually end up sacrificing him. But for Abraham to be willing to lay down Isaac, for him to show him, by the way, I didn't even want you to sacrifice your son. The ram is always there. The thing that you gain from losing or from breaking off of something is always there. That thing is always there. All God needs you to do is lay down the other thing. All he needs you to do is lay down the sacrifice that he's asking you to make, or the thing that you're idolizing, or whatever it is that you're doing. And once you lay it down, the ram, it was literally there hiding in the bush. Ilikuwa tu inangoja for the time for it to come out. So yeah, that's what I understand from that story. And this has been a testament in my life. Every time, for example, in 2017, I ended up leaving a job that I really hated. So it wasn't hard for me to leave it, but it came with financial security. And at the time, financial security was big for me, because yes, I was living with my parents, but it was nice to have money of my own. It was nice to not ask my mother or my father for fare, or for money to make my hair, or whatever, because that's basically what that salary was doing, right? And so God starts to impress it in my heart to leave this job. And I'm like, okay, God, I hate this job, but I love the financial security it's giving me, right? And I can promise you, immediately I just listened to God's instruction. But of course, after wrestling with him after some time, when I laid down that job, first of all, I got so many opportunities that have led me to where I am today. In fact, let me give you a tangible example. So this is in 2017. I have been in this job for a year. I'm depressed. I'm broke. Yes, they're paying me. I have financial security, but it's very little money. And I had another job on the side, because I was just like, I need to be able to, because you're paying me kidogo, let me also find kidogo somewhere else. So this other second job calls me in for a meeting. And I was just like, yeah, for sure, they are firing me. And yeah, now I'm going to be off of one income. And then God is telling me to also leave this other job. What am I gonna do? So I end up going for that meeting, and my expectation, by the way, was to be fired. So they sit with me and they tell me, oh, Sharon, we reviewed your contract, and we found out that we were grossly underpaying you. You were really being underpaid, and so we've decided to double your salary, and here is your new contract. I was like, sorry, I came here to be fired. What do you mean you're giving me a new contract with double the salary? And basically, whatever double salary that they were now offering me was enough to cover me from that job that I was supposed to quit. Basically, what I'm trying to show you is that whenever you lay down something, the gift that the gaining, or the gift that you're supposed to receive from laying down, that is always there. It's always available. it's always there. You just first have to lay down whatever God is asking you to break off of or break up with. Yeah. So another thing that I wrote is that trust God with your pain. And I know releasing things or breaking off of things, of habits or people, or breaking up, or just breakups in general from anything, they are very painful. They are very hard. In those moments, you doubt God a lot. You doubt the promise. You doubt your existence, to be honest. Well, in my experience, I saw a TikTok recently. I love TikTok. I saw a TikTok recently that someone said that they would pay money to never experience the day after a breakup. I was like, I will add to whatever money you're willing to pay, because that day, the day you wake up after a breakup, is like the worst morning. Because when you wake up and then it hits you, wow, like I'm actually going through a breakup and it happened yesterday. It's the worst feelings. Then that night you've probably cried yourself to sleep. You wake up with puffy eyes, your head is aching. Like, it's just such a feeling of emptiness and of feeling lost and feeling grief. And it's so hard grieving someone that's still alive. I think we're taught more about grieving people who have passed on, and I know it's very difficult even in those scenarios, but grieving someone that is alive, or grieving a job, or grieving a friendship that it's still there, but the way you can go back, but you shouldn't go back, is the hardest thing ever. And I would never wish that pain on anyone. But in my experience, I have learned that when you trust God with your pain, it's easier. And I know it's very Christianese of me to say, but I promise you that it is. So if you can trust him with your pain, then you can trust him. If you can trust him with your life, then you can also trust him with your pain, because he knows our emotions. He created us with emotions. Jesus felt emotions. He cried. Actually, I had a revelation recently about Jesus weeping. And there's a sermon that I was watching, and it was saying that Jesus waited 3 days, right? So he came resurrect Lazarus. The R's and the L's are too many in that line. He came to resurrect Lazarus on day 4, right? So he comes and he sees Mary and Martha, who are his friends. And, they're like, why didn't you come earlier? Our brother has died, the one you love, because he loved Lazarus. The one you loved has died, and all of these things. And Jesus knew he was going to resurrect Lazarus, by the way. Even as he's seeing them, he knows, yeah, I'm about to resurrect him. But he still grieved, and he still felt their pain. He could see how much they were grieving, and how much they were pained by losing their brother. And even though he knew that he was going to resurrect Lazarus, he still wept. He wept because he could see his friends in anguish. He felt their pain. And God feels your pain when you are grieving. He feels your pain when you are going through tough situations. When you cry, he feels it. He knows. He sees everything. I love the story of Rahab, and Rahab running, and God sending an angel and telling her, where are you running from? I know you're in pain. I know you've been mistreated, but go back. I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to bless your son, and all of these things. And Rahab says that I have met the God that sees me, El Roy. So God sees you. He knows your pain. He knows what you're going through. He feels your pain. So trust him with that pain, because he sees you, he knows you, and he sees everything that you're going through. And I don't know why God really impressed it in my heart to talk about this, because I really didn't want to, but I can feel that someone is like going through some pain, and they're in the midst of that anguish, because it's anguish when you have to drop something, or to break off of someone or something. I know it's painful. So take me as a testament, because a few months ago, girl, I was fighting for my life. A few months ago, I didn't know that I was going to make it through. I didn't know that I was going to come out of the other side, and I was going to see the sun shining again, and that I was going to wake up and not feel this burden on my chest and on my mind and on my heart, that I was going to actually feel like I can breathe again. I feel like I can exhale, like the sky is blue and the stars are shining and all of these things. So take it as a testament from me that if God could do it for me, he can do it for you too, girl. So this is a very short and sweet episode. That is all I have to share for today, but I hope this was impactful. I hope you've learned something from it. Please let me know any feedback you have in the comments, anything you have learned from this, your takeaway from this as well. And if you'd like us to explore this maybe with a guest in another episode. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you, or you'll hear me in another episode. Bye.